Thank you, Ranking Member Hall. Senator Ossoff, you're recognized for your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Shogan, good to see you again. And I congratulate you again on your nomination. You and I have discussed this issue previously, so you won't be surprised to hear that I'm eager to hear again your commitments to work with me to address the significant delays that veterans are experiencing accessing their service records. As you know, Dr. Shogan, to access their VA benefits and other services to which they're entitled as veterans, veterans need access to the military service records, which are in the custody of the archives. And the good news is that with Chairman Peters' support, last year I introduced and passed into law the Bipartisan Access for Veterans to Records Act in order to address the serious backlog of requests for access to military service records. And in your hearing last September, you committed to working with my office to address that backlog. So I want to ask you again, now that my bipartisan legislation is law, will you commit to working with me swiftly to eliminate the backlog of veterans record requests at NPRC?
Senator, thank you for that question. Absolutely.
And what is your understanding of the latest state of that backlog? What efforts are underway now to address it? What do you think will need to be done if and when you assume this office in order to eliminate it?
Senator, I think there is good news in that regard. The backlog is down to about 330,000 requests. The height of the backlog was over 600,000 requests, so that is good progress. And the projected timeline for completion of the backlog or elimination of it is in December of 2023. And if I am confirmed, I promise to make my first trip as Archivist of the United States to St. Louis, to the National Personnel Records Center, to see the operations on the ground, to figure out where we can find efficiencies, to make sure that we are using contractual authorities to the highest extent, to make sure that work gets done in an expeditious fashion. And also to explore any other creative solutions where we might be able to move that deadline up. Although ambitious, December 2023, I think we could all agree we'd like to have that sooner if possible.
Thank you, Dr. Shogan. And let's talk now about civil rights cold cases. Black Americans who, in the segregation era, were dragged from their homes, abducted, assaulted, lynched, subjected to horrific abuse and murder for which there was and remains impunity. Some of the most horrific crimes in our national history, they were never prosecuted. And the descendants and survivors of those victims are still with us. They rightfully demand justice. The good news is that we're making some progress toward securing justice. And last Congress, I passed into law the Bipartisan Civil Rights Cold Case Investigations Support Act to give the team tasked with investigating these civil rights cold cases the time they need to pursue justice. The archives have an important role to play in supporting those investigations. If you're confirmed, will you use your authorities to the fullest extent you can under the law to support those efforts to investigate civil rights cold cases, those unsolved lynching, those unsolved assaults and abductions from the segregation-era South?
Absolutely, Senator. I think that falls under the archive's priority of providing access to populations that need access to those records. We talked about veterans previously. That's, of course, so the veterans can claim their benefits. And in this instance, it's so that people can claim justice.
Thank you, Dr. Shogan. I have constituents who will be relieved to hear you make that commitment. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.